our films should be sushi. The least ingredients at the highest quality. This is like saying Michael Jordan's a good basketball player. I mean, what are we saying? These are the greatest movies ever made. She can feel me going, this is the best sushi you will ever have.
I see dead people.
Vidéo Club.
Hey, well, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Did you grow up in that culture of renting VHS, DVDs, and everything?
Yeah, it was, you know, beg my mom to take me to the video store Friday night. We'd have to get there early because there was only a certain amount of videos. They would have little tags, and you try to take the tag. If they had three, they have 3 copies. And if there's no tags, it's gone. And so you have to get there early, begging her, come on, come on, come on, we get there. And I wasn't allowed to have R-rated movies, so it was very hard to do this. So, and then I would go through the kind of horror section, and you'd run out of, you know, movies that were good. So we see them all, and then, you know, sometimes I snuck, as I got older, then I would go myself, drive there and bring them home, and it was amazing, yeah. It had far less than this store, but I remember the feeling of coming home with a pile of them to watch at home. So amazing, you know, you cherish it, watching it. And then the ones you actually bought were like, because they were so costly to buy back then.
The best. The best,
yes.
If we talk about movies, you've picked one from a Japanese director.
You know, Kurosawa's movie, you know, amazing movie. I'm very drawn to moral dilemmas, you know, and in kind of the movie that I just did, Knock at the Cabin, you know, at the center of it is a very difficult decision.
Your family must choose to willingly sacrifice one of the 3 of you to prevent the apocalypse.
And so the same thing here in this movie. I have this, a poster, Japanese poster of this over my fireplace in my office, and it's kind of to remind me of just, you know, the play-like quality of great cinema sometimes, you know, and his framings of, like, you know, you see a little bit of it here. They've kind of brought 2 different frames together, but the idea of someone listening and someone facing us. And I always even tell the DPs that I'm working with, well, let's do like a Kurosawa shot, which is 1 person in profile, 1 person facing us, and, you know, they each have a different feeling about the situation. And this moral dilemma is amazing. If you haven't seen this movie, this is incredible, you know. It's a very rich man who gets a ransom call. And he has a family, he has a little boy, he has chauffeurs and things like that, and there's the son of the chauffeurs and plays with his son and all that stuff. Then one day they're in this house and he gets a call that, hey, I've kidnapped your son and you're gonna give me whatever it is, $100,000. He's like, oh my God. He calls his wife and he's screaming and he's like, you know, he calls his son's name and his son comes out of the bedroom and he's like, ah, thank God it was a joke. You know, somebody's making a bad joke. And then soon they realize that the chauffeur's son was taken by mistake. And then the whole movie is about whether this rich man will give all his money to save someone else's son. Really, really cool. Well, this one's really funny because I was forbidden to watch this movie by Bryce. You know, I cast her when she was like 19 and, you know, and all this stuff. Then she did this movie. She's like, oh, don't see it, don't see it. I guess because there must be some graphic thing she didn't want me to see or something. So it's funny. It's
so you haven't seen it?
I haven't yet, but I wonder if the moratorium on that request is, you know, if it's over and I can now I'll have to ask her. I'll have to ask
you
her.
Should
but
ask her.
I guess it was a very intense movie. So that's. I think she did this right after The Village. This is one of my favorites. Persona. It's so incredibly beautiful. This had a lot of influence on my last movie, Old, which was on a beach, and the way he used the camera and the way he framed, and there's such a beautiful dolly shot in this that's so breathtaking. And this plus Kurosawa movements in Rashomon was how I shot Old, the kind of sharp, angular movements without regard to the actors. So whatever they were doing, like time is not respecting you. And so you can be talking, huge lines are set off camera as the camera is moving to the next character, like big moments of the plot. And that came from kind of combination of these 2 masters and how they use the camera.
In the novelty section, few movies with people that you worked with, like with Jonathan Groff.
Oh, that's right.
It's the last one.
Yeah, Jonathan is in this. Yeah.
You haven't seen it yet?
I saw, they sent, when Jonathan auditioned for me for Knock at the Cabin, his people sent some clips of him in this. So I got to see his work in that. That's funny. But then they sent me Mindhunter, the Fincher show. So all of that together made me feel like, wow, this is the guy. What an unusual body of work. He's so talented, incredible, the nicest person too. I'm a big fan of Ari. I got to talk with him a long time ago when he was first starting, and he was a really unusual and powerful voice. He really believes in his cinema, and I love it. And Jordan, of course, is a friend, and this idea of comedy and horror, which, I always kind of believed in, but then didn't really have the courage to do it until The Visit.
Shit doesn't taste like chicken. Oh, Shania Twain, bitches!
And then Jordan, when he saw The Visit, he really loved it and was like, okay, this is comedy and horror it can work. It can work. Yeah, so lovely, gorgeous.
Behind you is TV shows, and I don't know if you watch a lot of them.
Well, doing Servant for Apple.
Who wants to go to space? Yes, you fucking do.
Can you bring a certain, accent to television that would then be remembered? And so for him, this is the gold standard, obviously, of a filmmaker, bringing his voice there. And when I talked about doing, television, I was very hesitant to do it, but this was one of the reasons I did it, because I felt like he was able to do something extraordinary and also become a better filmmaker because of it. It wasn't like a step back. It was, he was becoming better and better. So this is a big deal for me, this one.
Do you feel that it helped you as a filmmaker to making The Servants?
It did. I didn't direct them all. Yeah. But I was pretty much I put every sound effect and every edit is mine, every piece of score, everything, for 20 hours of material. So 10 movies on the side while I'm making movies. And so it's just practicing and watching the other filmmakers too, because I hired a lot of independent filmmakers to come in, not TV directors. So I got to see how they told the stories that I had come up with in my head, for a thing, and going, wow, they made it more muscular, or they made it funnier, or they made it more sensual than I would have done it. So I was learning from all of them. It was such a lovely experience to learn from your peers. And, for me, making movies is so lonely. You spend 2 years by yourself and make it, and but the TV show, I got to work with a ton of filmmakers, so it was wonderful. I'm sure you have a lot of their movies here. Yeah, this is one of my favorite movies ever. There's 5 original posters of this, and I have one of them in my house. It's like my prized possession. Like someone who comes to my house to rob me, they'll take everything. If they just don't take this, Rebecca. But I love it. It's just so perfect, and of course the birds and all. I think Knock at the Cabin has a kind of throwback quality to this style of the movement of the camera and the use of the camera. In fact, we use very old lenses for it. They have, mistakes in them. They're out of focus. It's things like that. You can't replicate them. So it has a very old school feeling because of that. So we tried, to every shot that we did with Jaron and Lowell, who are the DPs, to mimic the limitations of the older days. So you can only move the camera this way, and this is how you would, which became a language for me. So amazing. And of course, the whole idea of a kind of a global event happening, and not understanding it. And from a group of characters that end up getting trapped in a house, and also, I mean, this is as good as it gets, right? So it's like, here he'd be like, stop stealing my stuff.
Well, it must have been something that everybody have been telling you since the first movies, like you have the same sense of making a twist. And
I remember as a kid and watching him in Birds, but also in Psycho. I don't know where you have that, but I understand this. I understand why he moved the camera, when he moved the camera, why he framed it the way he framed it. I'm like, I'm feeling this. Like, like there's a shot in Psycho where she's talking to Anthony Perkins and says, and she says, do you want to come in to his room? And the camera pulls back. Like they're both in profile. And I went, I know why he moved that, like as a kid, and going, and that understanding of emotion as images, that is in which he's the best at. Incredible.
We can go to the French section.
Man, my middle daughter is a filmmaker, so she went to NYU film school, the school that I went to, and she called me and said, "You have to see this movie. I just saw it in class. It was The Man Escapes."
Confier mes lettres à un inconnu, c'était peut-être me perdre et perdre avec moi leur destinataire.
And I was like, I don't know if I've ever seen this. So I got it and we watched it, and I was astonished at how much tension and how much beauty you can get out of some simplicity. You know, for me, I keep telling my crew that our films should be sushi, the least ingredients at the highest quality. And this is the best sushi you will ever have. Incredible how much he squeezes out. I'm astonished. You know, any action movie, I think this is so tense. I'm in awe of this movie and his ability. I have a bunch of his. I have a collection of this. I have a collection of Blu-rays, 800 of them. You have them all, but if I could go through, maybe there's not the 300-400 that I would put on there, but when you get on that shelf, it's like, it's a big deal. And there's many of his on my shelf, so. And this is obviously Julia's movie. It's not, you know. When I saw this, I was like, who did this movie? This is incredible, just absolutely incredible. Just from the beginning all the way to the end, and I found it profound. Luckily, I got to meet Julia, who's the director, and get to know her, and got along very well. And then luckily, I asked her to come direct for me in Philadelphia on my TV show Servant, and she said yes. And she did 2 episodes, and it was so lovely, the experience, and hopefully we will always be friends. It's wonderful to see this here. Just amazing movie.
Have you seen her last one?
No, I haven't yet.
Not yet.
I can't wait. In fact, it's my #1 on my list when I come back, you know. I take when I watch movies very seriously. I don't just casually watch. I have to watch something at the right time in the right place, and it has to relate to what I'm writing at the time. It's all weird because it's like food to me, you know, and so I don't want to casually watch something. Okay. You know, that's a big problem with my family, by the way, because they'll just casually watch stuff, and I'm like, I can't do this. So sometimes I have to be a good husband and just watch a rom-com that I'm not, you know, I just have to just do it. So I just do it, but she can feel it on me. She can feel me going. Yeah, no, amazing, amazing. I mean, you know, this is always kind of one of my favorites to rewatch, Midnight in Paris.
Can we not discuss my personal life in public?
Because he just nailed the tone and just everything. I think in his modern era, this was his most successful. I don't know, compared to Annie Hall or Manhattan, but I know in his modern era, this is the one that really connected. I could watch this forever. And it's a very wish fulfillment thing. Like, I wish I could go to a cafe and have my peers there. And also because I live so far away from Los Angeles, I don't have artistic, you know, group to hang out with and talk, you know. I would love to hang out with a poet and a painter and so this is my dream version of my life, you know, of I would have a group and I'd be hanging out with, you know, Picasso and all this stuff. Just this is my fantasy here, you know. And then of course being there is one of my favorite movies, just period. It's such a singular feeling, so powerful, absurdist and powerful and profound, you know, like dark comedy that turns profound for me. Like, we make fun of it, we make fun of it, we make fun of him, and then we're like, whoa. Were we the ones that were actually foolish? So profound. Again, in some ways, there's a twist. You know, there's a surprise. You know, so profound for me. This is Vicky, man.
Why are you not married?
I make dresses.
You cannot be married when you make dresses.
You know, Vicky starred in Old for me. Such a singular human being, so beautiful and so elegant, and you know, I can see why Paul picked her. You know, and so I found her very moving in this movie. I mean, I found the whole movie very moving. So it was wonderful to get to work with her. Hopefully, I'll get to see her again. Yeah, the horror section here. What is this one here? Oh, Night of the Living Dead.
The edition is not.
Obviously, one of my favorite movies. This was shot near where I live, you know, and very, very famous. And I was, again, a very profound ending for me. That you know, this movie, as it expanded and was so scary, and then became like a social commentary at the end. I was like, you know, tragic and, you know, got him, you know, and it's like, oh man, I didn't think I would feel this feeling at the end. Just amazing. Oh man, and there's so many amazing movies here. I mean, Robert's movies, I love him.
I didn't. I did not.
You know, got to know him, and I love him and supportive. And then obviously the DP here, Jaron, was my DP on Knock at the Cabin. So I love this movie. I thought it's just brilliant. You know, he's a brilliant cinematographer, a singular vision he has, and was lucky to get to work with him. Just amazing stuff. Also, I'm a big fan of Robert. Maybe one day. I mean, what are you gonna say about Jaws and The Exorcist, man? This is like saying Michael Jordan's a good basketball player. I mean, what are we saying? There's nothing to say. These are the greatest movies ever made. They're unbelievable. Well, this is one of the singular greatest movies that balanced entertainment and artistry, performances. I don't think, you know, Steven's ability to be an artist and entertain us at the same time was unmatched, you know, and this was the first time a scientific mind aimed at entertainment and just aimed it at us, and just pitch perfect, and the comedy and the horror and the scope, all of it, the drive, the action, every single thing, pitch perfect. You know, you could show any kids this right now and they're just perfect, you know. This era of, you know, where you still had naturalism, and it was still in even you were doing genre, they were taking the naturalism and bringing it into genre. Amazing. It's my favorite era. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. This is terrifying. Started this feeling of contained movies, contained horror movies, you know, a biblical story that takes place in a house, that servant, all of these movies. It's even Knock at the Cabin, you know, so it's very much has affected me how big, and this is, you know, these are the biggest movies of all time. So it's like, you can make one of the biggest movies of all time and never leave a bedroom. It's amazing. And more Ari stuff. This is incredible. This is amazing. And of course, Tony's in there, and Tony is one of the great actresses, and I was lucky enough to work with her in one of my first wide release movies, in Sixth Sense. So.
You think I'm a freak?
Look at my face. I would never think that about you.
Just amazing. And then I got to work with Alex on Old. Oh, so yeah, I got both of them. I had both cast members there. So on this, so amazing. And I thought Alex's performance in this movie was phenomenal. Such a wonderful actor.
Behind you, there is a movie that I wanted to talk about because I've read somewhere that it was important.
Yes. So Spike. When I was 15, I read a book of his on the making of this. He had just released this, and this book came out. It was about the making of, you know, this movie. And She's Gotta Have It had a profound effect on me because I read in it that you could go to school to make films. And I was like, my family's are immigrant doctors. I was like, you go to school to make films? Where can you go to school? And it was said, oh, you go to this place, the NYU Film School. And I was like, you're kidding. You can study this. So I was like, told my parents, I was like, could we, and I go, they were like, no, you're gonna be a doctor. And this made me feel like it's possible, that it's not some magic place, Hollywood, and you know, that you can actually decide and learn and go and become a filmmaker. So this was just a huge moment. And for me, he's, you know, truly as an example, you know, and also being non-white at the time was such a gigantic example for me. And since then, he's been so supportive and has come to so many of my premieres and just been so supportive. I met him when I was in school, and I was just a kind of a brash kid and all that stuff. And when we became friends later, I was like, hey, I apologize for being so brash when I was a little kid. But he's the best, man. You know, these are some of my favorite movies of all time. I mean, Walkabout is just a profound, again, that kind of naturalistic, but this one has a kind of a surreal quality. And on Old, I made everybody watch this because I wanted to have that kind of, almost like you're having an acid trip when you're outside. What does that feel like, you know? Just a and I found it scary. Of course, you know, Raiders is one of my favorite movies of all time, and this and Star Wars were the movies that when I was a child, I was like, whatever this feeling is I'm having, which I think people would call religion, this is, how do I get this feeling again? How do I do this again? I was like, well, let me just go make these.
You made a short movie about this one, right?
I did. Really, I made a really cheesy movie. Like me at 12 and like pretending I was Indiana Jones and getting the idol and, you know, sweating before I picked it up. And it was not one of my finer moments. It was, but so sweet. The kids all watch. I show it to my kids now. They laugh and laugh and laugh. This skinny kid, like, who's like pretending he has a fedora. And I got to meet Harrison, and all those guys later on in life. So it's amazing. And then these are all my guys from Knock at the Cabin. You know, I got Dave here, who I just texted on the way, and I was saying how everyone's loving him in Knock at the Cabin, and he's so sweet. So seeing him here, and he's so funny in these movies.
I like your knife. I'm keeping it.
That was my favorite knife.
And he's funny in our movie, but he's also just an incredible dramatic actor. So I can't wait for you to see what he does. It sounds crazy, but I mean, you're going to be stunned when you see him. And then same thing goes for Rupert. You know, I met all these guys early because there were some conversations about me being involved in this franchise.
Harry! Are you all right?
I flew to London and met with everybody. And so I met all these guys when they were kids on the set and hung out with them. And so now getting to work with Rupert as an adult, and now we're so close and friends and such a sweetheart. These are two of the nicest men you'll ever meet. And I'm super lucky. Can't wait for you guys to see them in the movie. Thank you. Konbini! Looking at all your movies here, just curious about them all.